Intro. I just got transmigrated, and I'm already getting dumped by my fiancée, the Ice Queen CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Just as I was about to give up and let my life fall apart, the super social suicide system activated. Mission: publicly confess your love to your fiancé's arch-nemesis. Reward: $10 billion in cash. Penalty for failure: your boxers will fly off in public. Me? To protect my last shred of dignity, I steeled myself and went for it. The result: the entire room was stunned. A Wall Street legend applauded me. My fiancé's nemesis became my biggest fan, and my Ice Queen ex-fiancée, with tears in her eyes, asked me, "You did all this just to get my attention, didn't you?" "No, I didn't, I swear. I just wanted to keep my damn boxers on." Isabel Sterling, on this day, officially announced the dissolution of my engagement to Mr. Caleb Hayes. The cold, crisp voice cut through the microphone, a blade of sheer ice slicing through the gilded warmth of the grand ballroom. Hundreds of pairs of eyes, a vicious cocktail of pity, contempt, and sheer morbid curiosity, snapped to me. In that instant, Caleb Hayes, became the punchline to a citywide joke. My throat felt like it had been scraped with sandpaper. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The sharp sting of pain was the only thing that kept me from completely losing my composure right then and there. 3 days ago, I was just a grad student, losing my hair over a thesis. I went to sleep in my crappy apartment and woke up in the body of this trust fund brat who happened to share my name. Before I could even get a taste of the champagne and caviar lifestyle, I was thrown straight into hell mode. Being publicly dumped by my fiancée, the revered Ice Queen of the corporate world, in front of the city's entire elite. On the stage, Isabel Sterling stood tall in a silver gown, her presence as cold and remote as a marble statue. After her announcement, she handed the microphone back to the MC, not even bothering to waste a single glance on me. The whispers started, 1,000 tiny needles pricking at my ears. "He deserved it. What can that Hayes freeloader do besides party? He's completely out of her league. I heard he wrecked the limited edition Ferrari she gave him last month, all for some Instagram model." Well, that's it for the Hayes family. They were counting on this merger to save their company. It's over. My face burned with a humiliating heat. The fusion of my memories with the original Caleb's confirmed that every single rumor was true. The previous owner of this body was an absolute moron, with a talent for self-destruction that was almost impressive. Just as I was about to adopt the ostrich strategy and bury my head under the table, a mechanical, emotionless voice echoed inside my skull. Ding! Host detected in a large-scale social suicide event. Activation criteria met. Super social suicide system is now bound. This system is dedicated to helping the host shed his useless pride and ascend to the pinnacle of life. Complete a series of socially humiliating tasks to receive magnificent rewards. I froze. A system? Was this my golden ticket? Newbie mission issued. Within 3 minutes, get on stage, snatch the microphone from Isabel Sterling, and shout to the entire audience 3 times, Caleb Hayes, will be the master of my own destiny. Mission reward: comprehensive enhancement of the host's physical attributes. Penalty for failure: host will perform a face plant on the spot, with your face grinding against the floor for 10 seconds. My vision went dark. Snatch the mic from Isabel and yell a line that sounded like it came from a cheesy 80s movie? They might as well just light me on fire. But the thought of the penalty, 10 seconds of face grinding on a marble floor, was a fate worse than death. What is life but a prelude to death anyway? I muttered, then shot to my feet. The screech of my chair, scraping against the floor, ripped through the ballroom. Ever I was on me again. Isabel, who had been about to descend the stage, stopped. She turned, her cold gaze fixing on me, laced with a wary, "What new brand of idiocy are you about to unleash?" expression. I met her stare and walked toward the stage, each step feeling like I was walking on broken glass. The snickers of the crowd and the flashes of phone cameras were my personal soundtrack from hell. I stood before her. She was half a head shorter than me, but her aura screamed 8 feet tall. She frowned, her beautiful, almond-shaped eyes filled with disgust and impatience. "Caleb, don't embarrass yourself any further," she hissed, her voice low but dripping with venom. I ignored her, taking a deep breath as the system's countdown hit 3 seconds. I snatched the microphone from her hand. The movement was so fast, so forceful, it even stunned her for a second. I raised the mic, and with every ounce of strength in my body, I roared at the dumbfounded crowd. Caleb Hayes, will be the master of my own destiny. Caleb Hayes, will be the master of my own destiny. After the third roar, the ballroom fell into a dead, ringing silence. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone looked like they'd been paused, their expressions frozen in a bizarre, comical tableau. I felt like my pride had been flayed, tossed on the ground, and stomped into dust. I didn't dare look at anyone, especially not Isabel. I could feel the frigid aura coming off her, so intense it felt like it could flash freeze me on the spot. Ding! Newbie mission complete. Reward issued. Comprehensive enhancement of physical attributes. A warm current instantly flooded my body. The sluggish, hungover feeling that had plagued this body was gone, replaced by an incredible sense of power. My vision sharpened. My hearing became acute. I could even hear the old man in the corner, the Wall Street legend Arthur Blackwood, muttering to his granddaughter, "This kid, he's interesting. A phoenix rising from the ashes." It seems the Hayes boy was playing us all for a fool. Playing you for a fool? I was playing for my life. Before I could even process it, the system's voice chimed in again. Main quest line initiated. Overture of the counterattack. Mission. Within 1 hour, walk up to Isabel Sterling's business arch-nemesis, the CEO of Vance Industries, Scarlett Vance, and confess your undying love to her in front of everyone. Mission reward. $10 billion in cash. Penalty for failure. The host's boxer shorts will automatically break free of their constraints, fly out from your pants leg, spin 3.5 times in the air, and land perfectly hooked on the central crystal chandelier. Puffed. I nearly coughed up blood. My boxers would fly off and hang from the chandelier? Was this system designed by the devil himself? My head snapped around, scanning the crowd. I spotted her almost immediately. Scarlett Vance was dressed in a fire engine red gown, her dark hair in soft waves, her lips a perfect crimson slash. She was holding a glass of champagne, watching the drama on stage with an expression of pure, unadulterated amusement. Vance Industries and Sterling Enterprises were mortal enemies, locked in a brutal corporate war. Scarlett and Isabel were like two queens who refused to exist in the same kingdom. And now, the system wanted me to profess my love to Scarlett, right in front of the woman who had just publicly annihilated me. This wasn't social suicide. This was a social nuclear holocaust, but that $10 billion reward, and the image of my boxers taking flight. I clenched my jaw. The money wasn't the main thing. It was about preventing my underwear from becoming a public art installation. I set down the microphone and, under the bewildered stares of the entire room, walked off the stage, heading straight for Scarlett Vance. Every step I took held the entire ballroom captive. I could feel Isabel's gaze burning 2 holes in my back. The atmospheric pressure around her seemed to drop another 10 degrees. The crowd parted from me like the Red Sea. I stopped in front of Scarlett. She raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk dancing on her lips. Well, Mr. Hayes, what's this? Done with the tragic hero act? Are you trying your hand at the handsome suitor role with me now? Her voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone nearby to hear. A wave of stifled laughter rippled through the onlookers. I stared at her stunningly beautiful face, my mind a complete blank. The system's directive to deliver a passionate confession went out the window. I just wanted to get this over with. I cleared my throat and, with the dead-eyed tone of a man on his way to the gallows, recited, "Ms. Scarlett Vance, I have feelings for you. Please go out with me." I said my piece, then squeezed my eyes shut, waiting for the system's confirmation. But the electronic ding never came. Scarlett was speechless. The entire room was, once again, dead silent. If my stunt on stage was insane, this was a whole new level of unhinged avant-garde madness. Confessing your love to your ex-fiancé's arch-rival at your own broken engagement party? What kind of galaxy brain move was that? Isabel's expression was no longer just angry. It was apocalyptic. I risked a glance in her direction. Her knuckles were white as she gripped a champagne flute, the veins on the back of her hand popping. She was staring at me, her eyes churning with a complex storm of emotions I couldn't decipher, a volcano on the verge of eruption. "Caleb, do you have any idea what you're doing?" A middle-aged man rushed toward me. It was Robert Hayes, my new father. He was trembling with rage, pointing a shaking finger at my nose, his lips quivering too much to form a coherent curse. Scarlett finally snapped out of her shock. She looked at me, then at the thunderous expression on Isabel's face, and suddenly burst out laughing, a delightful, musical sound that made her shoulders shake. "Interesting. This is truly interesting," she said, setting down her glass. She reached out with a slender finger and tilted my chin up, forcing me to meet her gaze. Her eyes were sparkling with the thrill of a predator who'd just found a fascinating new toy. "Caleb, do you know who I am? Do you know what confessing to me actually means? Of course I know. It means my boxers stay in my pants. I force myself to continue the charade, my voice still a monotone. I know. I just like you. Warning. Affection level is below 20%. Mission cannot be judged as successful. Please inject more emotion. A stampede of 1,000 phantom alpacas raged through my mind. More emotion? What kind of emotion could I possibly inject? The only emotion I had for her was a desperate plea to just play along so I could get this over with. Just then, a bolt of pure, unadulterated inspiration struck me. I looked at Scarlett, but in my mind I pictured $10 billion in crisp, untraceable bills. A light, more brilliant than any I had ever known, erupted in my eyes. It was the light of pure, unadulterated greed, a passionate yearning for wealth. My breathing quickened. My gaze grew so intense it could have melted steel. Ms. Vance? I began, my voice trembling with manufactured emotion. The first moment I saw you, my heart, my very soul was captured. Isabel Sterling never knew how to cherish what she had, but in my eyes, she isn't worthy of a single strand of your hair. For you, I would go to war with the world. To really sell it, I even managed to squeeze out a couple of tears. Scarlett was completely taken aback by my sudden, Oscar-worthy performance. The finger under my chin went rigid, and the playful smirk vanished from her face, replaced by a flicker of genuine shock. The people around us gasped. Go to war with the world? That was a heavy statement. This was no longer just a confession. It was a declaration of war. A public, brazen declaration of war against the Sterling family. He's lost it. Caleb Hayes has completely lost his mind. The breakup must have broken him. No. Look at Isabel's face. I followed their gaze and stole a peek. Isabel was biting her lower lip so hard that a tiny bead of blood welled up. The look she gave me was no longer just cold and disgusted. It was something else. A profound, heart-wrenching pain and disappointment. It was as if I had actually hurt her. Well, go to war with the world, Scarlett finally said, dropping her hand and clapping softly. Caleb Hayes, I have seriously underestimated you. You have more guts than I ever imagined. She leaned in close, her voice a conspiratorial whisper only I could hear. You want to use me to get back at Isabel? Fine. I'll give you that chance. Be at Vance Industries tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock sharp. Sign this high-stakes contract, and I'll agree to date you. As she spoke, she discreetly slipped a business card into my suit pocket. Ding. Main quest complete. Reward issued. $10 billion has been deposited into the host's anonymous Swiss bank account. My head buzzed. $10 billion. It was real. A tidal wave of pure joy washed over me. So intense, I almost laughed out loud. I could finally retire. $10 billion. The interest alone would be enough to last me several lifetimes. Forget Isabel, Sterling, or Scarlett Vance. They could all go to hell. I was going home to count my money. Overcome with emotion, I grabbed Scarlett's hand and said with the utmost sincerity, Thank you. You're a lifesaver. Scarlett. Question mark. The entire room. A lifesaver? Was this some kind of new pickup strategy? Scarlett's expression turned incredibly strange. She had likely never been called that in her entire life. Across the room, when Isabel heard my thank you, she physically swayed, as if she'd been struck. She didn't look at me again. She just turned, and with a chilling finality, stalked out of the ballroom, flanked by her bodyguards. Her retreating figure seemed almost fragile and lonely. I was a little confused. Wasn't she desperate to get rid of a loser like me? Why was she reacting so strongly to me confessing to someone else? Could it be she actually had feelings for the original Caleb? No, impossible. I shook my head, dismissing the ridiculous thought. It had to be my imagination. Now that the mission was complete and the money was in the bank, it was time to leave. I gave Scarlett and the gawking crowd an awkward smile and turned to make my escape. Caleb, you degenerate. Robert Hayes finally recovered, grabbing me by the collar, his face purple with rage. What is wrong with you today? Do you realize you've just made an enemy of the Sterlings? Our family is finished. Dad, calm down. I try to placate him. I can't calm down, he roared. You're going to go to Miss Sterling right now and beg for her forgiveness. Apologize? Not a chance. Before I could even respond, the system's voice chimed in again. Randomly triggered mission of father's love. Mission, in the most rebellious tone possible. Tell your father, my life is none of your business, and shove his hand away. Mission reward, God-tier driving skills. Penalty for failure. Perform a ridiculously suggestive pelvic thrusting dance in public. Me? System, I'm begging you have mercy. A pelvic thrusting dance? The mental image was too horrifying to contemplate. I looked at my apoplectic father, took a deep breath, and let my expression turn to ice. My life is none of your business, I said, each word a shard of glass. Then I shoved his hand off my collar. The unexpected force sent him stumbling back several steps. He stared at me in disbelief. You. He pointed a trembling finger at me, too choked with rage to speak. Ding. Mission complete. Reward issued. God-tier driving skills. An avalanche of information flooded my brain. Knowledge, techniques, muscle memory for driving. From Formula One racing to heavy-duty trucking, from mid-air flips to impossible drifts, I felt like I was ready to star in the Fast and the Furious 11. Ignoring the petrified onlookers, I straightened my collar and walked out of the ballroom without a backward glance. Behind me, I left a wake of stunned silence and 100 pairs of eyes filled with shock, confusion, and intrigue. They didn't know it, but the useless Caleb Hayes they once knew was gone. And I, a poor soul held hostage by a social suicide system, just wanted to go home and check my $10 billion bank balance. Outside the hotel, the cool night air did little to cool the heat on my face. The whole evening felt like a surreal, humiliating fever dream. I pulled out my phone, opened an unfamiliar international banking app, and entered the account details the system had provided. When a string of zeros materialized on the screen, my heart seized, a sharp pang that literally took my breath away. Ones, tens, hundreds, thousands, $10 billion. Happiness had come, so suddenly it felt like a physical blow. My knees went weak. I almost dropped to the ground and proposed to my phone. So, in the world of high finance, the most absurd joke can pop the most expensive champagne, I mused aloud. With this kind of money, who cared about Isabel Sterling, Scarlett Vance, the Hayes family, or the Sterling Empire? Not me. I decided then and there. Tomorrow, I was buying a private island. Sun, sand, and bikinis every day, far from this corporate insanity. As I was blissfully planning my early retirement, a black Rolls-Royce Phantom glided to a silent stop in front of me. The window lowered, revealing Isabel's flawlessly beautiful, Ice Queen face. But now, her eyes were slightly red-rimmed, and her gaze was a tangled mess of emotions. "Get in," she said, her voice raspy. I blinked. Hadn't she left? Why was she here, waiting for me? "Miss Sterling, we're not engaged anymore," I reminded her. I said, "Get in the car." Her voice rose, sharp and commanding. I didn't want to. I was half convinced she was going to drive me to a deserted location and have me whacked. Ding. Random mission issued, a crack in the ice. Mission: get into Isabel Sterling's car, and while inside, gently stroke her cheek with your finger and say, "Woman, you're playing with fire." Mission reward: God-tier combat skills. Penalty for failure: the color of your boxers will randomly change to neon green and will glow brightly for 24 hours. Me. I quietly opened the car door and slid in. Dignity is priceless, but my underwear's color is a close second. To avoid becoming a walking glow stick, some sacrifices must be made. The car's interior was spacious, filled with the same cool, subtle fragrance that seemed to cling to Isabel herself. A partition rose, sealing us in a private world. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. We sat in a heavy, oppressive silence. I could feel her eyes on me, studying me, dissecting me. I shifted uncomfortably, my mind consumed by the horrifyingly cringy task ahead. Stroke her face? And deliver that line? She'd have me thrown from the moving vehicle. But the thought of glowing green boxers. I'd rather take my chances with the pavement. I snuck a glance at her. She was looking out the window, the city's neon lights painting fleeting patterns across her perfect profile. Her long lashes were cast down, hiding her expression, making her look almost vulnerable. This was my chance. Stealing my nerves, I reached out my hand, moving it slowly toward her face. Just as my fingertips were about to graze her skin, she whipped her head around. Our eyes met. Her pupils perfectly reflected my hand, frozen in midair, and the look of sheer terror on my face. "It's over." My brain blue-screened. On pure instinct, I blurted out the mortifying line, "Woman, you're playing with fire." The air solidified. Time stopped. Isabel's expression shifted from startled to shocked to something I couldn't possibly describe. She didn't get angry, as I'd expected. She didn't tell the driver to pull over. She just stared at me for a solid 10 seconds. And then she smiled. It was the faintest of smiles, like the first crack in a frozen lake, as fleeting as a ghost. But it was enough to leave me completely stunned. "Playing with fire?" She repeated the words softly, the end of the phrase lilting upwards with a hint of mockery. Caleb, where on earth did you learn that line? I was so embarrassed my toes were trying to dig their way through the floor of the car. I had no explanation. Was it all to get my attention? She suddenly leaned closer, the cool fragrance intensifying, using the broken engagement to shock you into action, then deliberately provoking Scarlett Vance, staging this elaborate drama to make me jealous. So, I come back to you. With every word, she moved an inch closer. I was forced back, step by step, until my back was pressed hard against the car door, with nowhere left to retreat. Her face was less than 4 inches from mine. I could count her individual eyelashes. I was floored. What is she talking about? An elaborate drama? Make you jealous? Lady, are you a professional mental gymnast? I was just trying to keep my underwear from becoming a public spectacle. Staring into her eyes, which seemed to see right through me, I was utterly speechless. Ding. Mission complete. Reward issued. God-tier combat skills. Another massive influx of information flooded my brain. The fundamentals of everything from boxing and Muay Thai to judo and Brazilian jiu-jitsu were instantly downloaded into my mind. I felt like I could take on 10 guys at once. But that did nothing to alleviate my current, crippling awkwardness. Why aren't you saying anything? Isabel's voice was a low murmur. Did I hit the nail on the head? Looking at her face, so close to mine, a demon of impulse possessed me, and I asked, so, are you jealous? The second the words left my mouth, I wanted to slap myself. Why is my mouth so stupid? Isabel's body stiffened slightly. She didn't answer, just gave me a deep, unreadable look before slowly leaning back, resuming her Ice Queen posture. Take us to the Hayes family estate, she commanded the driver coldly. Silence descended once more, but the atmosphere had changed. The oppressive chill had dissipated. I snuck a glance at her and saw she was unconsciously tracing her own lips with her finger, the very spot I had almost touched, and was at a faint blush on the tips of her ears. My stomach dropped. No way. She couldn't have actually bought into that trashy romance novel script, could she? She couldn't possibly think everything I did was for her, right? This was a misunderstanding of epic proportions. Soon, the car pulled up to the gates of the Hayes family mansion. Get out, Isabel said. Right, I replied, relieved, and quickly opened the door to escape. Be in my office tomorrow morning. 9 o'clock. Top floor of Sterling Tower, she added just before I left. Huh? What for? I asked instinctively. She didn't answer, just shot me a cold look before the tinted window slid up. The black Rolls-Royce Phantom peeled away, disappearing into the night. I stood at the gate, the cold wind doing little to clear my chaotic thoughts. Scarlett wanted me at her office at 9. Now Isabel wanted me at her office at 9. One wanted me to sign a high-stakes contract, the other. Who knows? What was this? A scheduling nightmare from hell? I just wanted to be a lazy, rich bum. Why was the universe forcing me to become a master of time management? When I got home, my father, Robert, was still in the living room, sighing dramatically. He saw me, opened his mouth as if to yell, but seemed to remember my rebellious stunt at the party and swallowed his words. He settled for a loud, theatrical huff before stomping upstairs. I couldn't be bothered with him. I went straight to my room and collapsed onto the massive, soft bed. I opened my phone and gazed at the long string of zeros in my bank account. All the humiliation and social death I had endured tonight instantly melted away. Screw this scheduling nightmare. I'm rich. I'm not seeing anyone tomorrow. I'll shut off my phone, book a flight, and be on my way to the Maldives. I gleefully opened a travel app and started searching for private islands. Ding. Long-term main quest issued. Rise of an empire. Mission description. The host has acquired startup capital. Within 1 year, build the Hayes Corporation into a commercial juggernaut that surpasses both Sterling Enterprises and Vance Industries. Mission reward. Calculated based on final completion level. Penalty for failure. Host's assets will be wiped clean, and you'll be randomly transported to a primitive, famine-stricken tribe. Me. I stared at the mission description on my phone screen in silence. After a long moment, I quietly closed the travel app, opened my browser, and typed in a new search. How to bankrupt a publicly traded company in 1 month. That's right. I quit. Build Hayes Corp into a juggernaut? Are you kidding me? The company the old Caleb left behind was an empty shell, drowning in debt and on the verge of collapse. Surpass Sterling and Vance, 2 multi-billion-dollar corporate battleships. In 1 year? The mission was impossible. Rather than bust my ass for a year only to fail and be sent off to eat tree bark with a primitive tribe, I might as well embrace the failure now. Run the company into the ground, burn through the $10 billion, and live it up. Even if my assets get wiped in the end, At least I'll have had one hell of a party. Yes, this was the way. And when it came to burning money, I was a natural. The next morning, I woke up feeling refreshed and ready for action. My father saw me and looked like he'd seen a ghost. Why are you up so early? The old Caleb, he knew, never rolled out of bed before noon. Going to the office, I said succinctly. Robert was even more shocked. The piece of toast in his hand fell to the floor. The office. I ignored his bafflement, grabbed a slice of bread, and took the keys to a dusty sports car in the garage. The god-tier driving skills were no joke. I weaved through traffic with a series of breathtaking maneuvers that drew gasps from pedestrians, arriving at the Hayes Corporation building in just 10 minutes. It was a 30-story tower that had once been a landmark in the city center. Now its facade was stained and faded, radiating an aura of decay. I walked into the lobby. The receptionist was dozing off and took a moment to recognize me. Mr. Hayes. Yeah, I nodded, heading straight for the elevators. The whole company felt like it was on life support. Employees were listless, either chatting idly or scrolling on their phones. I rode up to the chairman's office on the top floor. Just as I pushed the door open, Robert arrived, panting and out of breath. What do you think you're doing? I've nearly bankrupted myself trying to keep this company afloat, and now you're here to cause more trouble, he wheezed, leaning against the doorframe. A meeting, I said, spinning around in the massive leather chairman's chair. It felt pretty good. Get all the senior executives. Conference room in 10 minutes. My tone was absolute. Though he was full of questions, Robert saw the unfamiliar seriousness in my eyes and, with a healthy dose of skepticism, went to make the calls. 10 minutes later, in the conference room, a dozen middle-aged men with varying degrees of male-pattern baldness were seated around the table, looking at me with undisguised contempt. They were the company's old guard, and they had zero respect for the spoiled brat who was technically their boss. Gentlemen, I began clearing my throat. As of today, I am formally taking over all operations at the Hayes Corporation. A wave of stifled snickers went through the room. A portly man with a shiny bald head, the CFO Big Bob Rollins, spoke up in a condescending tone. Mr. Hayes, you're taking over? Do you have any idea how many billions this company is in debt? Can you even read a balance sheet? Yeah, stop playing house and go run home to mommy, another chimed in. Robert, you need to get your son under control. The company can't survive any more of his games. My father's face cycled through shades of red and white. I, however, wasn't angry at all. In fact, I smiled. This was perfect. The less they believed in me, the easier it would be to burn this place to the ground. I will now announce my first executive decision, I said, rapping my knuckles on the table to get their attention. We are acquiring the Star Trip streaming platform. The room erupted. What? Acquire Star Trip? Mr. Hayes, are you insane? Star Trip is a bottomless money pit. It lost over $1 billion last year alone. We barely have enough cash to make payroll next month. What are we going to acquire it with? Big Bob Rollins shot to his feet. I object. Absolutely not. That move would bankrupt us overnight. I wasn't asking for your opinion, I said, my gaze turning cold. An unexpected air of authority settled over me, likely a side effect of the system's rewards. I'm informing you. Bob, get the paperwork started. I want to see a purchase agreement on my desk by the end of the day. My stare seemed to spook him. He opened his mouth, but no further objections came out. Also, I continued, all company employees will receive a 50% pay raise, effective immediately. Furthermore, we are establishing a new Moonshot Projects division dedicated to researching impractical, pie-in-the-sky ideas. The budget will be $10 billion. Uffed. My father, Robert, couldn't take it anymore. He gasped, his eyes rolled back, and he fainted dead away. The conference room descended into chaos, and I, watching the pandemonium unfold, smiled in satisfaction. Universal pay raises, acquiring a toxic asset, and funding a money-burning department. The holy trinity of corporate self-destruction was complete. At this rate, the Hayes Corporation would be filing for bankruptcy within a month. Then, I'd take my remaining $10 billion. The system's reward money was in a separate account, unaffected by company finances, and live the good life. I was a genius. Just as I was reveling in my perfect plan, my phone rang. It was Scarlett Vance. Mr. Hayes, it's almost 10 o'clock. My patience has its limits, came her voice, a lazy drawl laced with a hint of danger. Only then did I remember my appointment with her. Might as well go. It was all part of the master plan to bankrupt the company. Her high-stakes contract sounded like a surefire way to lose money. Signing it would be another huge liability on the books. I yelled, "Meeting adjourned," to the chaotic conference room and peeled out of the parking garage of my sports car, heading straight for Vance Industries. The Vance Industries tower made the Hayes building look like a shack. It was a gleaming monument of glass and steel. I gave my name at the front desk and was politely escorted to the top floor. Scarlett's office was the size of a football field, decorated in a style that screamed opulent luxury. She was lounging on a sofa, long legs crossed, swirling a glass of red wine as she watched me with an amused smile. "You're an hour late," she stated. "Traffic was hell." I lied without missing a beat. "Was it?" She held up her phone. "I was just reading the news. The new chairman of Hayes Corporation, Caleb Hayes, made some bold moves this morning. Announced an acquisition of Star Trip and gave everyone a 50% raise. You've been a busy boy, Mr. Hayes." Her intelligence network was fast. "Just a little warm-up." I waved my hand dismissively. The amusement in her eyes deepened. "A little warm-up. I wonder what Isabel Sterling will think when she hears how you're burning through your family's money." "What's it got to do with her?" I asked, feigning confusion. "Oh," Scarlett raised an eyebrow. "All these grand, reckless gestures. Aren't you just trying to prove to her that even without the Sterlings, Caleb Hayes can still make waves? You're sending her a message, telling her she made a mistake." I sighed internally. This woman's ability to create elaborate fanfiction in her head was on par with Isabel's. The two of them should have been screenwriters. "All right, enough chatter," I said, cutting to the chase. "Where's the contract? Let's get this over with." She handed me a folder. I took it, flipped straight to the last page without even glancing at the contents, and scrawled my signature. "You're not going to read it?" Scarlett looked genuinely surprised. "No need. Why would I? I was hoping you'd screw me over. The bigger the scam, the better." Scarlett watched me, her expression turning complex. "Caleb," she paused, as if choosing her words carefully. "You've really changed." "I've been body snatched," I thought with a grim smile. "The contract is signed. I met your condition. Now, will you agree to date me?" I asked. "Of course," she purred, standing up. She walked over, wrapping her arms around my neck. A heavy, expensive perfume filled the air. "From now on, you're my man, Caleb Hayes." She whispered in my ear, her breath warm. "But don't think I'm that easy to use. You want to shake things up? I'll help you. But you have to provide something of value in return." "What kind of value?" I asked warily. "Simple," she smiled. "I want you to help me snatch the South Chicago redevelopment project from Isabel Sterling. You have 1 month." The South Chicago project? My mind dredged up the details. It was the city's next major central business district. Sterling and Vance had been battling over that land for ages. Rumor had it that Isabel had been preparing her bid for a year and was determined to win. She wanted me to steal it from her in a month? That was a suicide mission. It was perfect. I was looking for a faster way to drive the company into the ground. "No problem," I agreed instantly, afraid she might change her mind. Scarlett was clearly not expecting me to agree so readily. She blinked, then her smile became even more dazzling. "Good. You got guts. I knew I wasn't mistaken about you." Business concluded, I was ready to leave. "Wait," Scarlett stopped me. "Since we're dating, shouldn't there be some kind of gesture?" She pointed to her cheek. "I got it. Oh, quiche. I'd done worse things for less today." I leaned in, preparing to give her a quick, chaste peck on the cheek. At that exact moment, the office doors were thrown open with a violent bang. Isabel Sterling stood in the doorway, her face a mask of glacial fury. In her hand, she held a high-end insulated thermos. She saw us, frozen in our intimate pose. Her pupils contracted. The thermos fell from her hand, crashing to the floor with a loud clang. The meticulously prepared soup inside splattered across the expensive rug. "Me? Scarlett. Isabel, Caleb, you are unbelievable." With that, she turned and walked away. I stared at her rigid back, then at the soupy mess on the floor. A strange, uncomfortable feeling churned in my gut. Was she bringing me lunch? Ding! Large-scale social suicide love triangle environment detected. Hidden mission triggered. Mission: immediately chase after Isabel Sterling and kiss her forcibly. Mission reward: God-tier medical skills. Penalty for failure: run 3 laps around a Vance Industries tower while wearing Scarlett Vance's red high-heeled shoes. My vision swam. System: have you no soul? Forcibly kishi zerbed. She'd freeze me solid and shatter the remains. But the thought of running in high heels. No, just no. I shoved Scarlett aside, shouting, "Isabel, let me explain," and sprinted after her. Scarlett stumbled back, watching my frantic escape with a thoughtful expression as she glanced from me to the spilled soup on the floor. I ran like a madman, finally catching up to Isabel at the elevator bank. "Don't go." I grabbed her wrist. It was cool to the touch, like jade. "Let go," she said, her voice dangerously low, without even looking at me. I won't. I was all in now. Not until you let me explain. Explain. She finally turned her head, the icy daggers in her eyes threatening to pierce right through me. Explain why you were in Scarlett Vance's arms. Explain why you'd rather be her lapdog than do anything but humiliate me. Her words were knives, each one twisting in my gut. I finally understood. From her perspective, my acquisition of Star Trip, my partnership with Scarlett, it was all a pathetic, self-destructive campaign of revenge against her. It's not what you think, I said, my voice cracking with desperation. Then what is it? She demanded. How could I possibly explain? Tell her I've been hijacked by a system? That I was doing all this to protect the integrity of my underwear? She wouldn't believe me. She'd think I'd gone completely insane. Looking at her reddened eyes and her proud, trembling lips, my brain short-circuited. On pure, unadulterated impulse, I pulled her into my arms, lowered my head, and crashed my lips against hers. For a moment, time stopped. Isabel's entire body went rigid. Her eyes flew wide with disbelief. Her lips were softer than I could have imagined, with a faint sweetness, and the salty taste of soup. My mind went blank. The only thing I could hear was the system's cold, robotic voice. Ding. Mission complete. Reward issued. God-tier medical skills. An ocean of medical knowledge poured into my brain, from ancient Eastern pulse diagnosis to cutting-edge Western surgical techniques. I felt like I had become a doctor with a century of experience. But I had no time to appreciate it, because Isabel had recovered. She shoveled me away with all her might, raised her hand, and slapped me across the face. Crack! The sound was sharp and loud. A searing pain exploded on my cheek, and half my face went numb. Caleb, you bastard, she yelled, her voice thick with tears. Then, she turned and fled into the elevator. The doors slid shut, hiding her eyes, which were filled with a shattering mixture of fury and humiliation. I stood there holding my stinging cheek, utterly speechless. I screwed up. This time, I think I really screwed up. I trudged back to Scarlett's office in a daze. She was calmly directing a janitor to clean up the mess. She glanced at the bright red handprint on my face and raised an eyebrow. Well, looks like the battle was intense. I was in no mood for her jokes. I collapsed onto the sofa, feeling completely hollowed out. What's the matter? Having regrets? Scarlett sat down next to me, handed me a glass of whiskey. I told you, a woman like Isabel Sterling is a block of ice. You could die for her, and she wouldn't shed a single tear. I didn't say anything, just took the glass and downed it in one go. Giving up on her now? Scarlett pressed, her voice seductively persuasive. Work with me. Once we take down Sterling Enterprises, I'll make you the chairman. Then you can humiliate her however you want. I looked at the excited glint in her eyes and suddenly felt sick to my stomach. I'm tired. I'm going home, I said, getting up. Leaving already? Scarlett sounded displeased. What about the South Chicago project? I'll handle it, I said, and walked out without looking back. I didn't know where to go. I just drove, aimlessly, through the city streets. My mind kept replaying Isabel's last look. It wasn't hatred or disgust. It was complete and utter disappointment. A shattering. My chest felt tight. I was only supposed to be completing missions. How did it get like this? I didn't have any feelings for her, so why'd it hurt to see her look at me that way? He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And if you gaze long enough into an abyss, the abyss will gaze back into you. The random, pretentious thought popped into my head. I slammed my fist on the steering wheel in frustration, the car's horn blaring in protest. I needed to clear my head. I parked the car and walked into a random bar. The thumping music, flashing lights, and writhing bodies on the dance floor were a world away from my problems. I found a dark corner and started drinking, one glass after another. The alcohol numbed my nerves, but amplified my thoughts. I started to seriously question myself. Did I really just want to be a lazy, retired bum? What if I actually completed the long-term mission? What if I built Hayes Corp into an empire, bigger and more powerful than Sterling and Vance combined? What would that look like? At that point, would I finally be free from this damn system's control? At that point, wouldn't Isabel Sterling and Scarlett Vance have to look up to me? A wild, audacious idea began to form, fueled by the whiskey. Burning it all down? No, I was going to win. I was going to take this impossible mission and make it a reality. I was going to make every single person who ever looked down on me eat their words. Once the idea took root, it was unstoppable, spreading through me like a wildfire. The next day, I woke up in a presidential suite I didn't remember booking. My head was pounding from the hangover, but the fiery resolve from the night before was still there, burning bright. Let's do this. I showered, changed, and felt the power surging back into me. First step, solve the South Chicago redevelopment project. Isabel had been preparing for a year, greasing all the right wheels. In a conventional bidding war, I wouldn't stand a chance. I needed to think outside the box. I opened my laptop and started digging into every piece of information I could find on the South Chicago plot. Zoning maps, policy documents, environmental reports, competitor analyses. The system's upgrades seemed to have boosted my cognitive functions as well. My ability to read and process information was superhuman. Soon, buried in a mountain of data, I found my opening. Beneath the plot of land was a network of abandoned Cold War-era fallout shelters. They were old, structurally complex, and would be incredibly difficult and expensive to deal with. This was a major reason other developers were hesitant. Sterling's proposal, I knew, was to simply fill them in with concrete. It was the brute force solution, but it risked destabilizing the foundation and was astronomically expensive. A bold plan started to form in my mind. What if instead of filling them in, I redeveloped them? What if I turned the fallout shelters into a subterranean commercial center or a unique, themed entertainment complex? The idea was so insane it startled me. The engineering challenges, the design complexity, it was almost impossible. But why not try? I immediately called Big Bob Rollins. I need the best geological survey and architectural design teams in the country. Spero no expense. I want a complete redevelopment proposal for the South Chicago fallout shelters on my desk in 3 days. On the other end of the line, Rollins sounded like he was about to cry. Mister, hey, my dear boy, there's no money left. We still haven't paid for the Star Trip acquisition. I'll handle the money, I said, a glint in my eye as I hung up. I didn't have the money, but I knew someone who did. I dialed Scarlett Vance's number. I need $5 billion, I said, getting straight to the point. There was a long silence on her end. Caleb, do you think my money grows on trees? Do you want the South Chicago project or not? I countered. What do you need $5 billion for? That's my business. You just need to provide the capital, I said, my tone unyielding. Fine, she said, surprising me. But on one condition, I want you to move into my house. We'll live together until the project is over. I was stunned. Live together? What was this woman playing it now? Ding. Random mission issued. Dancing with the devil. Mission. Agree to Scarlett Vance's cohabitation request. On the first night you move in, you must cook her a candlelit dinner wearing nothing but an apron. Mission reward. God-tier cooking skills. Penalty for failure. The system will randomly revoke one of the host's God-tier skills. Me. I took a deep breath. Fine, I agree, I said into the phone. When will the money be transferred? The money arrives when you do, Scarlett chuckled, and hung up. I lowered my phone, feeling a profound sense of exhaustion. Just when I was feeling ambitious and powerful, the system always had to hit me with a soul-crushing, socially suicidal backhand. Wearing only an apron. I quietly opened Amazon and searched for men's aprons. Whatever. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs. You can't build an empire without occasionally debasing yourself. For my future, I would endure. That afternoon, I packed a small bag and moved into Scarlett Vance's mansion. Her home was even more absurdly opulent than I had imagined, complete with a helipad and a private golf course. Welcome, my boyfriend, Scarlett said, leaning against the doorframe in a silk robe, a sly smile on her face. I ignored her teasing. Where's the money? Not so fast, she said, walking over and linking her arm with mine. First, we need to fulfill our cohabitation duties. She led me to the dining room. A long table was already set with fine china and candles. Tonight, you're cooking, she said, gesturing toward the open-plan kitchen. I've had all the ingredients prepared. I looked at the dazzling array of top-tier ingredients, then at a single item hanging on a nearby hook, a frilly, pink, lace-trimmed apron. A vein throbbed in my temple. Scarlett, you're doing this on purpose, aren't you? Of course, she laughed, looking like a cat that had just cornered a canary. I just want to see what the talk of the town, the great Caleb Hayes, looks like cooking in an apron. Now hurry up and change. I'm hungry. I closed my eyes and took a deep, calming breath. In my mind, the icons for God-tier driving, combat, and medicine flashed before my eyes. Ultimately, I surrendered. I took the humiliating apron and walked into the kitchen's changing room. A few minutes later, I emerged. I was wearing nothing but the pink, lace-trimmed apron. It was breezy. When Scarlett saw me, she first froze, then erupted in a gale of laughter so powerful it brought tears to her eyes. She doubled over, gasping for air, while simultaneously whipping out her phone and snapping pictures. Ha ha, Caleb, you are the gift that keeps on giving. Oh my God, this is going straight to my Instagram stories. I stared at her, my face a mask of stone. I felt nothing. Not a single ripple of emotion. Just a mild, homicidal urge. Ding. Mission complete. Reward issued. God-tier cooking skills. Countless recipes and culinary techniques flooded my mind. I felt like I had instantly become an iron chef. Ignoring Scarlett's ongoing hysterics, I walked to the counter. I prepped the ingredients, worked the wok, seasoned everything with perfect precision. My movements were fluid, graceful, a culinary ballet. Soon, a series of magnificent, fragrant dishes were on the table. Escargots de Bourgogne, black truffle beef Wellington, and a notoriously complex consommé of cabbage. Scarlett had finally laughed herself out. Wiping a tear from the corner of her eye, she looked at the Michelin star-worthy spread in astonishment. You can cook. Try it, I said, my words clipped. She skeptically picked up her knife and fork, cutting a small piece of the steak. The moment it touched her tongue, her eyes lit up. Delicious, she gasped. This is better than any restaurant I've ever been to. She then tried the consommé, and the simple yet profound flavor left her speechless. She devoured the food like a woman starved, her usual queenly demeanor completely forgotten. Watching her look of pure, unadulterated satisfaction, I felt a strange new emotion. So this was what it felt like to create something beautiful with your own hands, to bring someone else joy. The $5 billion will be in your company's account by morning, Scarlett said after the meal, dabbing her lips with a napkin, her savvy CEO persona back in place. However, she added, her tone shifting, I hear Isabel Sterling is also dead set on winning that land, and she's hired a world-renowned master architect for her proposal. Beating her won't be easy. We'll see about that, I said calmly. That night, I slept in the guest room, my mind racing with plans for the South Chicago project. With Scarlett's funding, the teams I hired got to work immediately. Surveying, mapping, 3D modeling. 3 days later, a revolutionary proposal was on my desk. We would transform the abandoned fallout shelter into a massive, subterranean city, integrating shopping, entertainment, dining, and art installations. We would use the unique structure of shelters to create a one-of-a-kind, immersive experience. I named the project The Core. The proposal stunned everyone who saw it, including Scarlett. Caleb, you're either a genius or a madman, she whispered, staring at the breathtakingly beautiful design renders. If this project succeeds, it will be a landmark for this city. But if it fails, there are no ifs. I cut her off. I had absolute confidence in myself and my plan. On the day of the bidding presentation, the proposals from Sterling Enterprises and the Hayes Corporation were the main event. The international master architect Isabel had presented a safe, polished plan that emphasized luxury and exclusivity. Then it was my turn. I took the stage myself and, in front of all the judges and city officials, unveiled my vision for the core. When a massive 3D projection lit up, revealing a futuristic, imaginative underground metropolis, the entire auditorium erupted. Everyone was captivated by the sheer audacity and creativity of the concept. Isabel Sterling sat in the front row, watching me on stage, her expression a whirlwind of unreadable emotions. She probably never imagined that the trust fund brat she once knew, who was good for nothing but partying, would one day stand on a stage like this, shining so brightly. The result was a foregone conclusion. The Hayes Corporation won the bid. The moment the chairman of the committee announced the winner, the room exploded with thunderous applause. I stood in the spotlight, basking in the praise and admiration of my peers. My eyes instinctively searched the crowd for Isabel. She was already gone. For some reason, a pang of disappointment hit me. At the victory gala that night, Scarlett, dressed in a stunning, form-fitting gown, was the queen of the ball. She hung on my arm, proudly introducing me to everyone as her partner. I had become the city's hottest new prodigy. Countless people came to offer toasts and congratulations. I handled it all with a smooth, easy charm. But deep down, I felt an unshakable emptiness. Halfway through the party, I slipped out, needing some air. I got in my car and, on some strange impulse, found myself driving to the Sterling Tower. I didn't know why I was there. Maybe I just wanted to see her. I dialed her number. It rang for a long time before she finally answered. What is it? Her voice was cold, laced with exhaustion. I opened my mouth, but the words wouldn't come. What was I going to say? That I won? That would sound like I was gloating, rubbing salt in her wound. If there's nothing, I'm hanging up. Wait, I said quickly. Are you at the office? Can I come up and see you for a minute? There was a long silence on the other end. Just as I thought she was about to refuse, she said a single, Quiet word. Fine. I went up to her office. She was standing in front of the massive floor-to-ceiling window, looking out at the glittering cityscape. Her silhouette looked fragile and lonely against the vastness of the night. "What are you doing here? Come to laugh at me?" she asked without turning around. "No," I said, walking to stand beside her, our shoulders almost touching. "I just wanted to tell you, I can give you half the profits from the South Chicago project." She whipped her head around, staring at me in disbelief. "What did you say? Is this your idea of charity?" "It's not charity," I said, looking her straight in the eye. "You deserve a piece of this project. I know how much work you put into it." She was stunned. The ice in her eyes seemed to melt just a little. "Caleb, what are you really trying to do?" Her voice was full of confusion. She didn't understand me anymore. Ever since that day at the engagement party, I'd become a complete stranger to her. Every single thing I did was the opposite of what she expected. I looked at her bewildered face and felt a sudden, powerful urge. I wanted to tell her everything. About the system, the missions, the fact that none of this was entirely my choice. But could I? Would she believe me? As I hesitated, the system's voice echoed in my mind one last time. Ultimate bonus mission triggered. Mission. At the groundbreaking ceremony for the core project in 1 month, in front of the world's media, proposed to Isabel Sterling. Mission reward. Penalty for failure. The system will unbind from the host. All rewards, including cash, skills, etc., will be revoked. The host will be returned to his original world. I froze, the world falling away around me. End of story. Part 2. Mandatory separators.